Hi, Mike here with another one of my travel orienteering videos. This time I'm at the 42nd annual West Point National Ranking event. Unfortunately, I forgot to take my headset mount, so there's no video of the actual race, but I did take some video at the event, and I'll be reviewing the courses I ran together with some sightseeing I did at West Point. I'll let the Army cadets introduce the event themselves.
Good morning, everyone. So we're West Point cadets hosting the national ranking event this year. So this Saturday and Sunday we have competitors coming from pretty much all over the place to race a bunch of different courses here. Right now we're at Camp Buckner, but in the afternoon we have a race at West Point. It's a sprint course. Then tomorrow we also have another race. So we have plenty of competitors, and it's something we do every year to give back to the orienteering community.
On Friday, I drove from home, went through Connecticut, crossed the Hudson River, and parked at a church parking lot, courtesy of the Harvest Hose program in Newburgh, if that's how you pronounce it. I'm just going to show you a little addition I made to the van, and then I went out for a little walk in the evening, so we'll just take a look at the scenery there. One addition since the last trip was putting this larger cutting board over the induction cooktop surface with little sort of rubber mount things on it that are stuck onto it. It's been very stable, and most of the time, at least for these long weekend trips, I don't use the sink a whole lot, so I get quite a good worktop area in the kitchen, and then with the lagoon table extended out as well, there's plenty of surface area for what I need to do. And a very pleasant evening stroll it was. Nice sunny day, ducks on the pond. Ducks were having a little sleep. Time for me to go back to the van, get some dinner, watch a bit of YouTube, and go to bed. Here we are at the event parking at Camp Buckner. There's my van on the right. There's registration, shuttle bus that took us to the courses, some more parking. Here's the orienteering shop, and I got myself a new pair of shoes because my current ones are on their last legs. My legs. Here comes the bus back from dropping off a bunch of people to go collect the next set of people. After the race, I saw this truck which was perhaps taking more water for finishers because when I finished, they had unfortunately run out of water. And here's the last control at the event on Saturday, just to show you some of the terrain. Saturday's race was a medium course, which meant that instead of having a smallish number of long legs with an occasional short leg, there were a lot of controls, and so there was not much navigation choice between them. It was more about fine navigating between each control. So we'll take a look at a few legs at a time rather than each one individually. We're going to start with the first two controls. How do you think you would go about them? And take a look at the map here. I was just going to go around the side of the hill from the start and contour along to the first control and then go pretty much straight to the second control from the first one. That was the plan. Started out by going fairly straight, but that meant climbing up fairly early after the start, and I saw another competitor going around the side of the hill to the right, and that was more obvious to me. And from there on, it went about as bad as it could possibly go. I was too far up the hillside and couldn't find the boulder, the control. Came across a couple large boulders, and I thought, well, that was definitely, and it wasn't. I went higher up, went back along the top a bit. No, not along the top, but along where all those crags and rocks are. Came across a couple of other controls, went down a bit, went back up, couldn't find it, and eventually decided I'm going to give up on this and go to the second control. I don't normally give up, but it seemed like I just couldn't find it at all. I didn't know what was going on. I did go across the hillside and did find the second control okay, and I thought, well, I'll give the first control one more go. So I went back from number 2, and I did find the first control there. It was much lower down the hillside than I was expecting. And having gone to the first one, I then went back to the second one so that I wouldn't be disqualified. And that wasted me about 20 to 25 minutes. What a bad start. Plan was fairly straightforward, just to contour on the hillside. I got the valley and then hope I could navigate my way into the control. Actually worked out quite well. Went along the hillside to pick up the trail and cut across into the big valley from the trail corner. Then I noticed that the valley was basically going up towards the control, and I just followed along and was able to get to the control fairly cleanly, fortunately. 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 was a case where there really isn't any navigational choice. You just go straight between each one. So that's what the plan was. And in practice, it went pretty well. I tried to be careful with the navigation. I could see my way into the control 4 and then took get the bearing straight to 5. Found that okay and found 6 okay. So the first plan was, well, I could go straight, but that meant climbing. Everything else had been pretty much straight. So that hill seemed a little bit high. Could go around to the left. That looked like it had a reasonable amount of white forest to run through. I took a look to the right, but that wasn't very inviting, much greener. So my plan was to go to the left around the hill and then navigate my way in from the end of that big hill. When I started coming out of Control 6, the hill didn't look that tall, and I started going a little bit straighter, but realized that wasn't the best way to do it. I just went to the left a little bit and then could see the gap between the two smaller hills. Went across the flat area and I could see my way up that small re-entrant that led into the control. There was, I think, a control about 70 meters in front of it, and I knew that wasn't mine, so I went past that. I saw somebody diverting to that, and I went straight to the control, so that worked out well. 7 to 8 to 9 looks pretty straight, and that's what you should do. In actuality, from 7 to 8, if you go down the hill too soon and end up towards the lake and think that you'll go along the bottom of the lake, that would have been bad, because there was really no way to move along the bottom of the lake. But fortunately, there was a trail that was leading from 7 down that steep hill to 8, and then 8 to 9 was just a pretty straight run into it. What about 9 to 10? This was the first leg where I actually had some serious route choice. What would you do? I thought that what I should do would be to cut down to the left to that big trail, follow that all the way around to the valley, and then cut in going to the right into the control. Although when I was coming out of number 9, I thought, nah, I'll go straight-ish towards the right a little bit. I thought it was just going to be a bit more challenging, a bit more interesting. I knew my competitive race was all over because of the way I'd messed up that first control, so I thought I'd just do some more interesting orienteering. It was pretty slow going early on, getting through the green and across the rocky area, but then I was able to go along between the two hills, across all the rocks, and I think some people stopped earlier, but at maybe another control. It was maybe 80-90 meters before control 10, but I ignored that and just carried straight on and went into it pretty nicely. So to me it seemed basically go straight all the way, navigating fairly carefully. So coming out of control 10, that green area up ahead was pretty thick, so I had to go around that, but then it was just a matter of going through the sort of gap and into the control. I think I hit a control ahead of it, by mistake. I was pretty sure it wasn't mine, but I think I was veering into it, but then went into the control at 11. And 11 to 12 was straightforward enough. It was a big climb up that little sort of valley with all those rocks. Coming out at 12 was horrendous for the first few meters because it was almost vertical, scrambling up a rock face. But from then on, getting across to 13 was pretty straightforward. The visibility was pretty good in the forest there, I seem to remember. So from 13 to the finish, there's a lot of controls very close together. So I was basically going straight to each one and just navigating carefully. That was the plan. 13 to 14, I was off to the right a little bit by design, just to get around some rocks. So I went into the control at 14 pretty successfully. 15, that control is orienteering, and gosh, with my eyesight I couldn't see on the map where it was, but I basically went straight and yeah, I came across it. 15 to 16, sort of a rock star. That was easy enough to see in the open area. 16 to 17, that was a horrific hillside to come down. Got down to the trail, but even when you went to the trail, that was really nasty going down there. But getting to control 17 once you were down was very straightforward. And then 17 to 18 was just easy, just around the trail and then in. And then 18 right into the finish, and that was it. There was a sprint race on Saturday afternoon, which I didn't do. I have to be careful of the number of races I do, given my bad knees. So instead I went to the West Point Museum and on to visit the West Point campus itself. Some links from the chain installed to block the Hudson River during the Revolutionary War, and a cannon from the War of 1812. Then look at what I came across, some of the orienteering flags. I actually came across the sprint race while I was sightseeing around the campus. Great location for the race. The finish there overlooking the Hudson Valley. Sunday's event, here we are, waiting for the bus to come to transport us to the race. And here it comes, a more luxurious looking bus than Saturday's. Here's some of the terrain from the bus ride. Injured competitor from the first race on Saturday, and here we are off to the start. That was the nasty hillside we came down on both Saturday and Sunday. And making sure we go the right way with the cadets there. This is on a long walk to the start on Sunday. It was about 1 kilometer to get to the start. There's the start area. See people just warming up, just waiting for the time to be called. Then I'll move on to the next start station. I had a few more minutes before my start. Here we are at the finish, waiting for the bus to take us back. Sunday's race was a long course, and so we're going to take a look at pretty much each of the legs individually. And as a reminder, even though I put it up there, this is not a masterclass. You'll have seen from day one that I had a pretty awful mistake. And you'll probably see some mistakes on this day as well. Anyway, let's see how things go. Plan to the first control was to get out on the track, down the small path, and then from the corner, go up the hill into the control. So it started out fine. I got onto the track, figured out what I was going to do, found the side trail, went down that, and then went along to the corner, took one look at that hillside. It was a giant hillside, very, very steep. Saw somebody partway up and backed off, decided to go up the trail. And afterwards spoke to a fellow competitor, and I definitely made the right route choice. That hill was really nasty to climb up. I was slightly off to the control, but recovered and found it soon enough. Plan was to go more or less straight, just to the left a little bit, perhaps around the rocks in the middle of the leg, and then hope that I would be able to navigate well enough to find the control. Yeah, I started out going left. I could see the big rocks and the crags there. Went down into a sort of flat area, so I knew I was going a little bit to the left. Then I started to climb the hill. Ended up going through a bit of green stuff that was a bit of a challenge, but managed to figure out how to get towards the top of the hill and then just move along the top of the hill to the control. Idea was to go straight for the first part of the leg till I hit that trail, then go along the trail. And I didn't know whether to go to the left or to the right of that big marsh, but I then decided to go to the right and then somehow figure out how I would get up that hill into the control. Started out okay, went down and then up the other side, cut through a sort of little gap between a couple of hills there. Down the hill a little bit, found the trail okay, went along the trail until the trail started to climb up a little bit, which it does about here. Decided I was going to go to the right of the marsh. I could actually see the marsh, but there was a bit of rough stuff to get through here, as that's why the map's green. Didn't really find the sort of the valley and the gap I was looking for. I just sort of went up the hill, and I stopped a little bit too soon round about here. Realized I was too soon, and then carried on and found the control okay after that. Three to four looked quite the challenge to figure out what to do. I had decided that I was going to go straight south pretty much, cut across a small trail, and then go along the road. And then I had a couple of choices to go to the right, or I even initially thought maybe I'll just go all the way around near where Control 5 is, but that seemed to be too long. After the race, I realized in talking to somebody there was another possibility of going further to the left and going to the left side of the pond all the way around. I didn't even consider that, and I'm not sure that would have been any better than what I initially chose. And I suppose you could even go a long way round to the left, following the big trail and then the road all the way around. That might work out well if you're a really fast runner. So I started out going down from the control. That was the way I wanted to go into the control. I suddenly found that okay. Up this gentle hillside to the trail, and found that trail junction pretty quickly. Went along the small trail, down the steep hill, which was pretty difficult. And the trail at the bottom here was very rocky, so it was really slow going. But once you got through that, it was onto this big long trail, and then just sort of a bit of road running, which I could use to do some planning of the rest of the course. So we just carry on the road, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I decided that I was going to go across this part here and then down into a sort of a campsite area, and then go along the bottom of the hillside here to the marsh, and then try and go straight in the control from there. The woods were fairly open, and it was pretty straightforward to go. I do think that I was a bit too slow here and didn't quite figure out where the control was. I did eventually come across it, lost a little bit of time looking around the general area. 4 to 5 was just a matter of going straight to it and being careful with the navigation. I saw that giant boulder on the way, and that's basically how it worked out. Plan was to go more or less in a straight line, just to the left of the straight line to get across the marsh, and then try and find that big shallow re-entrant as a lead into the control. So I started going straight. Went left a little bit. The runnability was quite good until we got to the marshy area. Then it got a bit messy crossing the marsh, but that went okay. And visibility was quite good around here. And I did find this small, shallow valley. I did go to the side of the valley. I think there was another control around about here, but I ignored it because I knew mine was further along and went into it just fine. Plan was to go down the shallow re-entrant, kind of follow it down and round, and then go straight into the control, being careful how I navigated. So I found this shallow valley quite nicely, went down and around, saw this giant boulder just passing it here, and then went straight towards the control. Although I did make a mistake that the control itself I thought was on the top of the crag. I just misread the control description, or clue sheet, and it was actually at the bottom of the crag, so I lost a few seconds while I was standing at the top of the crag figuring I was at the right one. Then I went round to take a look at the bottom, and there it was. Seven to eight, another control where you basically go straight and just try and be careful with your navigation. Started out fine, go down the valley, pretty much go in a straight line and start going up the hill the other side. I did stop a little bit sooner. I think there might have been a control right there, but there were some other people in front of me, and it didn't take me long to realize I just needed to carry on going a bit further to the control. Eight to nine, down the hill, round the trail, and then bear left up the small trail into the control, and then from 9 to finish straight down the trail. Looked pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Coming out of 9, had to go to the right a little bit, and that hillside was pretty horrific. Very steep, very long. I actually slid deliberately on my backside for 20 yards as the best, safest way to go down. Eventually got to the bottom, got to the trail, went round, but somehow I missed the turning to the left, so I went a little bit too far and then went up the hillside and was wondering why I couldn't see the control, but I saw that big trail and then knew I had to go to the left there and into the control. And then to the finish, just a matter of blasting around the path all the way to the end. So my thanks to the West Point Army Cadets for putting on such a great event, even though, as you can see from the results, I was the last finisher on the Saturday thanks to my diabolical error at the first control. Sunday's race went a lot better. That's it for now. Hope you enjoyed the video.